Well, thanks for joining us for our inaugural episode of the Cybersecurity Whisperer. Today's Saturday, February 17th, and my name's Elliot Franklin. I'm thrilled that you're here joining us. I'll keep it brief. I've had a lot of folks tell me that I should start some sort of little YouTube channel. I'm going to see if I can do this. Obviously, super busy with my work and family and everything right now. But I thought I'd take a few minutes every Saturday or at least once a week to just share my thoughts on what's going on with cyber and hopefully help others. I think that's the kind of the goal of cyber, in my opinion, is we're all in this together. No matter even if you're working at a company that's a competitor. In terms of industry, because from the bad guys, keeping the bad guys out, I think that's what we're all trying to do, is to protect our companies, protect our customers, our shareholders, employees, and ultimately there's the human element where we even work to protect our families and our kids online from all the predators and such. So we'll just dive right in. I know there's a lot of podcasts and different security shows you can watch, and so I hope to make this one different. And I'll certainly spare you a lot of my bio. You can certainly read about that online, but I'll just say over 25 years, certainly over 20 years of cybersecurity experience. Involved in security organizations, speaking at conferences, volunteering, and certifications and such as well. So I'll start off with those that actually it's interesting because my team, we just got back from our annual planning strategy meeting kind of for the quarter, and we were talking about what conferences we're going to go to this year, and we talked about RSA, which we're excited to attend, and I know there's lots of schools of thought on that from different folks, but I always get a lot of value out of it, and I think it's what you make it, and I love the connections there and a lot of the industry leading partners there as well. And then of course the DEF CON Black Hat. And I've never been to, in all my time, I've never been to DEF CON. I've heard lots about it. I have my mentor, really encouraged me to go this year. So I think I'm going to go. And then I read this morning that Caesars, after 25 years, Caesar just abruptly pulled the plug on hosting it, and they're not allowing the DEF CON organization to meet there. Who knows if it was related to the big ransomware incident that happened or not. But hey, you know what? As with most things, if you try to look for the positive side, which I know us in security tend to not do, or at least I don't, it's always looking for we're risk managers. So what's the risk? What's the downside? But with this, they've already secured the Las Vegas Convention Center, August 8th through 11th. So even a much, much larger space. Seems like it's just going to allow it to grow. So super excited to see what's ahead this year in August for DEF CON. I'll tell you that I'm not a penetration tester. I don't do, I don't have time with my family and everything right now. I'm in the stage of life to really be doing, pen testing and stuff just for fun, just for a hobby. So over my 20 or so years, I've probably made 3 responsible disclosures when I just happen to run upon something that I know is off or odd about a system or software. And that happened this week. And obviously, I'll spare the details. The brand details or the company details, but let's just suffice it to say I was logging into one of my cloud services that I use for just on a personal level, and I was doing some searching for something that I needed, and I realized in my search results I was getting back all customers, not just me, and so I knew that was a problem. I took a screenshot. I emailed that to their abuse mailbox and also reached out to a couple of folks on, because every site should have, every company, industry, enterprise should have an abuse mailbox. I also reached out on LinkedIn to a couple of people that I wasn't connected to, but I reached out to a few folks that I was able to find on LinkedIn, let them know about it. And I will say that just within, a couple of hours, I heard back that they were researching it, and a couple hours after that indeed they had fixed the problem, and I logged back in and verified, and sure enough, it had been fixed. So, there are security companies that are still serious about fixing their flaws and taking, and so again, I think we should all work together to help our fellow security folks when we see things like that. To be responsible in disclosing it, not to go all over social media, just to let the company know, give them the reasonable time. I say 90 days may be too long, but I think that's kind of still the standard. And then if you get no response, well, certainly you should take it to a broader audience so that you will get some attention to it. Speaking of those kind of pen testing kind of things, it's interesting, that it came out in the news this week that the feds want to ban the Flipper Zero, and I know over in Canada is also moving towards banning it, and they're saying because it contributes to car thefts, but. I think for those of us that have one and that have played with them, it really doesn't. The device, if you're not familiar with it, is modeled after and named after the virtual dolphin from the movie Johnny Mnemonic, and it's essentially a tool you can use to hack stuff, right? From a pen test standpoint. And so it can scan radio frequencies, clone key fobs, control infrared devices. And some have called it the Swiss Army knife for security researchers. That's the key, right? And you actually use it to improve your device security. So again, it's you use it to test, and then like pen test should, to improve what you find. And it's also used by hobbyists such as myself, who like playing around with tech and IoT. And but as with a lot of things, there's a lot of, I'll say, fake videos about its capabilities that are on sites like TikTok and other social media platforms where things are staged, and so that's leading these regulators to wanting to ban it. So maybe get one now while you can. Also this week being Valentine's Day, hopefully you were able to survive Valentine's Day without playing or being the victim to a romance scam. According to ESET, 350 million people use dating apps in 22, and then Forbes tells us that in current day, 3 in 10 adults use dating apps, but in 23. And the romance scams cost victims that we know of, those that are not too embarrassed to report it, right? As with any tracking of crime, the romance scam victims in 23 cost over $1 billion that they gave out, according to the FTC. And so you're talking social media, direct messages, this whole catfishing and sending you fake pictures and then falling in love, and then the person immediately having health issues or a family emergency and they need money. And of course now, the scammers are even using bots and AI to carry on these very realistic conversations. And so, if nothing else, the advice is just, the apps are real. People do successfully meet and ultimately even get engaged and married from these dating apps. But you've got to meet the folks in person. And something else, with these apps, when you're talking about security for you and your family, is the location services, location tracking. A lot of these apps require you to have it on so that it, will match you with people that are within a certain mile of your radius of your location. If you do turn on location services for that app, make sure it's only while you're using that app and not for all the different apps on your phone. Again, just to help from a physical security and a stalking standpoint. Was a super busy week. Patch Tuesday from Microsoft. They fixed 2.0 days this week, if you've not heard of that. Certainly the Windows Smart Screen bypass vulnerability is pretty serious. Smart Screen is really designed to warn users about anytime you're running an unrecognized application that could be harmful to your machine. But the exploitation of this vuln could lead to, of course, unauthorized data exposure or render your systems completely unavailable. The second one that they fixed or patched was with internet shortcut files, and it's a security feature bypass flaw, so that attackers can carry out their attacks without triggering any of those security checks that would normally be in place to prevent such incidents. I'll end this week with an article that was in We Live Security, talking about the buck stops here and why the stakes are so high for chief security officers. You talk about heavy workloads and now really the personal liability that incidents are taking on CISOs, from the two examples last year of CISOs that were fined or arrested, whether you're talking about Uber or SolarWinds. And so what does this mean for CISOs and for companies? And really, the list of tips that they give, I think, are pretty spot on. You're talking about two different perspectives when you're looking for a new CISO role. If you are in that camp and you're looking to move into that role, or you already are and you're looking to find a new one, make sure that, as crazy as it sounds, that you hire some sort of personal lawyer that can or professional that can look through the contract or the offer letter that you get in detail. And then when you're at the company, from a board perspective, so if you're sitting on the board of a company with a CISO, you've really got to assess your CISO's mental health. Let's say that kind of sounds silly coming from someone that does this, but certainly it's top of mind for all of us that we need to make sure we're truly taking time, to separate work from family, and we've got work-life balance, workload, the resources and reporting structures so that we are effective in our roles. That regular board CISO engagement is essential, and that you potentially even have a direct reporting line to the CEO if possible. This is super key and something that's really been really discussed a lot at a lot of recent security conferences, is that boards really need to make sure that their CISO is on the directors and officers, the D&O coverage and insurance for that company to help insulate them, hopefully, from serious risk. Many CISOs are now going out and purchasing their own personal liability policies, commercial policies. It wouldn't be covered under your normal residential or umbrella. Again, if something happens and you're fined or you're blamed for something, a breach at a company, until you're able to, just to fight for your reputation and your role. Make sure that, and this is true, I think, for any job, but that CISOs should really stick with the industry they love and embrace greater responsibility rather than just running away from it. We've got to remember that we are risk managers. So our role is to advise and provide context for the board and the leadership team, and then ultimately, in the end of the day, let others make those decisions. If you've got a risk acceptance process, you should be able to sleep, fine at night, being able to say, here's the risk, here's some options to mitigate it. But ultimately, it's the leadership team or the board's role to sign off on that and determine how the company handles that. What's the risk appetite for that and for the company? Certainly, as we saw last year with SolarWinds, again, obviously that's still out for the courts and such, but that CISOs should always prioritize transparency and openness, especially with regulators. Again, there's no need to hide if you have a challenge patching at your company, if you have a challenge with phishing test or security awareness or cloud security, configuration management, data security. You just need to be transparent with your leadership team and your board and the regulators. Never come to one of those events saying you don't have something or you have a huge gap and you don't have a plan in place to fix it, even though it may take years. But if you're not transparent and you have a breach and it's going to come back to personally now impact you. And so you want to make sure that you are super transparent and open about your security program and not be ashamed if things aren't perfect, because no security program is perfect. And depending on SMB, the size of company you're at, you may have extremely limited resources. And so you just work with what you've got, prioritize it, follow a framework, probably the NIST cybersecurity framework, prioritize your top maybe 3 things you can work on in a year, have a 18-month and 3-year and 5-year roadmap, and just make progress on it. Crawl, walk, run, something my team probably gets tired of hearing me say every day. And avoid blinky light syndrome, where you just want to buy all the new shiny objects, but you don't even have a written plan and framework to follow to implement them, and you're not even taking care of the basics, such as patching. Let's see. And then finally, this is super key as well, just to cover yourself. Make sure that you are mindful about what you circulate internally, and ensure any of these decisions, like a risk acceptance memo or any request from the C-suite for you to do something, are always in writing, whether it's an email, something that you have proof of, just again to protect yourself from that liability. So with that, again, I appreciate you joining us for this first episode, and hope you'll follow us and like our channel to keep up with us. Thanks. Have a great week.